everyone. A very good morning to all. We'll just give a minute for the participants to just trickle in, and then we'll just get going. Great, then let's kick ourselves off. Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I'm super excited to be with all of you today who have joined us from different parts of the world. I'm Manoj. I've been in the field of healthcare primary market research and analytics for close to a decade now. I currently head the PMR product offering at ZoomRx. Today, I wish to take you all on a journey into the world of market research to a place where the qualitative insights meets the quantitative scale. So, before we begin, who are we first? We are ZoomRx. We are the go-to primary market research partners for the pharma brands, including all the top 10 manufacturers in the world. Our USP is that we operate at the intersection of technology, healthcare know-how, and have a proprietary panel. We help answer crucial business questions for brand teams, predominantly focusing on oncology, neurology, cardiology, and the vaccine space. We help the brand teams throughout the commercialization life cycle, from early stage, helping them prepare for the launch, help them launch all the way through to sunset of the brands. So that's who we are. We are proudly built on the foundation of innovation, and today have the opportunity to talk about one of our latest innovation on the market research stack. Our conversation today will be most relevant for pharmaceutical brand teams, commercial teams, marketing teams, and the insights teams the most. So whenever there are two distinct and different things, right, like we tend to call them as black and white, right, or as different as day and night. Our lives is usually divided into such binaries, right? Like it could be happy and sad, hot and cold, tall and short, and many, many more. Similarly, our world of market research is divided into a binary. We call them the Quant and the Qual, the surveys and conversations. As you could imagine, Quant is heavily numbers oriented. We ask, hey, how much time was spent, how many patients you have, how much ratings you would give, what is your likelihood to prescribe, how, and howdy. While Qual is language oriented, it tries to find the ebbs and flows of the human behavior. It tries to understand the reasons behind what we do and why we do it. Quant, in short, answers the how many, while Qual answers the what's and why's. Quant thus focuses a lot more on width, while Qual focuses a lot more on depth. Thus, by the sheer definition of Quant, they scale really, really well, but they don't adapt. While Qual adapts really well, but they don't scale. This barrier has been present ever since market research came into practice. But does it hold true in the brave new AI world? That's the foundational question we asked ourselves as we wanted to break the barrier between the Quant and the Qual world. Can we build a survey that adapts and a conversation that scales? Now, why is that a crucial problem to solve? Because we believe breaking down the barrier between the Quant and the Qual world will change the way we do market research. Let's look at a simple example at the tip of the iceberg. When we want to understand why an HCP prescribes a particular drug, we could ask an open-ended question trying to understand their brand preferences. But we could end up getting responses that could lack depth. Sometimes one-word responses like efficacy, safety, or dosing. We all have been there, like frustrated, staring at our screens. Doctors, can you tell us more? Really dying to ask more on what they mean by them. But we seldom hear a thing. We all have been there. Now, breaking the barrier between the two worlds will enable us have the ability to adapt and scale, thereby prompt a question, thus making us all feel like we've got the 6 infinity stones at our disposal. Hence, we set out towards our moonshot. A moonshot to dissolve the boundaries between the quant and qual using AI. We broke down the moonshot goals into 4 broad problems. Problem number 1, having personalized real-time conversations. That is, we might want to have conversations that factors in the demographic details of the doctors, the behavioral details, their attitudinal details, or we might want to feed in the data from different data sources like the target list. It could be flowing from other secondary data sources. It could flow from our typing tools. So all of these data sources needs to be baked in so that we are able to have personalized real-time conversations. 2, collecting high volume qual data, in a way making the qual scale. But this is just complex because the quantum of logistical effort goes into collecting and organizing the qual data is tremendous. Problem number 3, driving fluidic multimodal conversations. That is, we might want to switch between various question types, probably show an image to the doctor or ask them to look at the video and get them to talk. All of these needs to happen and happen seamlessly. Problem number 4, the most crucial problem, getting richer insights by integrating the analysis of qual and the quant. Again, a scale problem, a very important last mile problem that needs solving so that the real value is seen by the brand teams. The world that we are marching towards will enable us by solving these problems. We want it to be A, dynamic, that is, customize the content flow for each respondent, each doctor, based on multitude of factors. 2, we wanted to field asynchronously, that is, bypass all the logistical efforts it takes to collect and organize such qual data. Thereby, we'll be able to meet respondents whenever and wherever convenient for them. C, be very flexible, that is, switch between varied question types, be it text, audio, oral, numbers, video conversations. So we want it to be very flexible here. 4, dive in deeper, that is, instantaneously fetch rich qual data that could support the quantitative analysis as well. This is the future where there would be no boundaries and demarcations. This is the future world we want to be in, and this is the future world we are in. For all of us in the pharma market research community, introducing the new world, the world of dynamic dialogues. The world of dynamic dialogues is a key part of the solution in our vision to dissolve these boundaries. It is the solution to ask more and understand the whys and whats behind the behaviors and attitudes of doctors at scale. It will enable us to have a dynamic conversation entirely on real time that's super personalized, collect high volume of qual data through asynchronous fielding, 3, drive flexible conversations by switching between multiple question types seamlessly. But what does it really mean? Simple. It asks a follow-up question in context of the prior response. If we go back to the example that we talked about earlier, if a doctor is talking about efficacy, it could ask a follow-up question in line with efficacy. Again, if it's talking about safety, it could continue a conversation which will further probe on what do they really mean in safety, and similarly for dosing. Thus, the world of dynamic dialogues will enable us to build adaptability to what could really scale. So how do we go about setting this up? It's a simple three-step process. Step one, we build the guardrails. That is, we indicate where to dive in and how much to dive in. Once we decide this, we can simply change our existing open-ended questions into a dynamic dialogue conversation. Two, we feed all the necessary business context. It could involve, hey, what sort of a question we are trying to answer, what's the client context here, what's the brand's context here, what is the market context here, etc. Three, we could test it simply in a virtual environment and make sure that all the questions thrown by the AI is validated and could launch the survey to the respondents. Now, this is as simple as that from a plain vanilla project standpoint, but what really happens under the hood? It's a bit complex, but just stay with me. The dynamic dialogue stands on top of three crucial inputs. The project inputs that we just talked about in the prior slide. Also, it stands on the pharma inputs and the platform inputs. The pharma inputs is all given by the ZoomRx's pharma knowledge graph. We call it the pharma KG. We also have trained these models on pharma specific, market specific context, right? Like, what does an ORR mean? What does an DOS mean? So it has all the context so that it will be able to understand such short forms that gets thrown at it. The last, the platform inputs, we have the ability to pipe or fetch data from varied data sources, either within the survey or outside of the survey. So all of these information are being fed into the model, and when a doctor comes to it and starts having a conversation like, hey, what is the brand that you would prescribe for and what's the reason for it, and they say safety, it gets fed into the model. The model understands the entire context and will be able to have a conversation in real time with that particular doctor, thus enabling our dialogue in an extremely dynamic fashion. Now, this all could look good, right? You may think, hey, these are all great in lab experiments, but the real world cases just like blow our minds off. For instance, this is a project that we worked with a top 20 pharma manufacturer. They wanted to understand the depth of awareness of one of their products' latest clinical data. So a typical open-ended question looked like, hey, can you elaborate the information that you're aware of? The respondents were saying, hey, it could reduce fractures. Now, with all the context, we were able to further probe them on what sort of fractures did this drug reduce. Thereby, we were able to get a lot of rich insights. With another doctor, the doctor said something like long aim safety was the new elements, right? Now, if you could look closely here, the doctor has wrongly spelled the word term. The mission was able to understand that, appropriately throw a follow-up question stating, hey, can you tell us more about the new statements in the long-term safety of drug A? Now, this is probably a pretty simple spell check correction, but the last example really was something that I wasn't able to comprehend. The doctor typed something like real Whittle study that flowed 500K patients. The mission was able to comprehend this with all the context. It was able to understand that the doctor was talking about a real world data. Ideally, it's a real world study that followed 500K patients. The results that we saw was there was an increased depth on the conversation, at least at the magnitude of 2x. Now, all this makes us extremely confident in terms of how this is going to change the way market research is being done in the pharma world. Now, that could be amazing, but you wouldn't clap it, because asking questions isn't just enough, right? We have to delve deeper. That's why every research of us has the hardest part, the part that we call the analytics. So fret not, we understand that asking solves a good chunk of the problem, but it also could drown us in a sea of data. Thus, analyzing them is going to be crucial and harder. So here we introduce the concept called as the LLM Qual engine. This enables us to dive in deeper. What does it do? It works at two levels. One, it will be able to contextually bucket all the verbatim responses. Two, it will be able to process insights for queries in natural language. For example, we could ask, hey, can you show me HCPs who indicated safety as a driver? And it could tell us like, hey, 30% of the HCPs indicated about an adverse event, and it will also be able to pick those responses and show us what they really talked about. Thus, we would be able to build scalability to what could really adapt well. So overall, we think this innovation of dynamic dialogues combined with the LLM Qual engine will enable the pharma brand teams to get deeper, actionable insights. Some of the use cases for these could be, say, things like your performance tracking or brand tracking MD80Us, where we are trying to delve in deeper to understand about the doctor's preferences between various brands, trying to identify barriers that's preventing a doctor to adopt a brand, or just to understand the HCP's beliefs in greater detail. Or it could be on the context of a patient ATU, where we are trying to understand the varying levels of patient adherence, or trying to understand different segmental insights between varied patient types, or just investigating accessibility related challenges. This could also go into other study types like, something like a patient chart audit, where we are trying to understand doctors' decision making, trying to probe and understand why does a treatment journey looks a particular way, or dissecting a consideration set of a doctor, and a lot more use cases, right? Wherever there is a need for us to dive in deeper, understand a lot more about the whats and whys at scale, we believe this solution is going to work like a magic. I'll stop there and I'll take up any questions that you may have with respect to our latest innovation in the dynamic dialogues. So, Quantum, just to make sure, like, will the participants be able to unmute themselves? Sorry, Conrad, if you're talking on, I can't hear you.
Yeah, hi Manoj. I think everyone is unmuted if they want to verbally ask the questions, or they can also type questions in if they prefer that.
Got it, got it. Cool. If you have no particular questions, thanks a lot for all of your time today, for dialing in and listening into our new innovation. Really appreciate it. Once again, have a great day ahead, team.